Well, good morning and welcome in everybody to the Farzy show here at the Steven Singer Studios. We got a great guest today. D-Ray, Darryl Reynolds will be joining the program at Villanova fame. Talking about his boy Jay Wright. Talk a little bit about Kobe Bryant getting into the Hall of Fame over the weekend. And, of course, talk about those 76ers. They now know who they'll play. Or, excuse me, they're now waiting at least on the two opponents that they might be playing in the first round of the playoffs. And they know when they'll be playing. They'll be playing on Sunday against either the Washington Wizards or the Indiana Pacers. And ironically enough, the Pacers are the only team that they've lost to of these four squads that they could have ended up playing in the first half, or excuse me, in the first round of the playoffs. So we got that to talk about, and we'll talk about that with Darryl Reynolds. And we, of course, have a lot to talk about when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies and what took place yesterday against the Miami Marlins. And that's a team that the Phillies just couldn't get off their back really over the last couple of seasons. So we'll talk about that. And we also have some Eagles news, and this is interesting. This broke yesterday afternoon. The Eagles will not have mandatory minicamp. Mandatory minicamp. That is canceled. June 8th through the 10th. Canceled. Not happening. COVID protocol and all that, it appears to be something that the players and the team have worked out. Nick Sirianni supposedly talked to his players, got their vibe, I guess, when it came to whether or not they wanted to practice or not during COVID, and it appears that that is not going to happen. And it wasn't something that was necessarily under the table. This is something that we knew something was going to happen, considering the NFL Players Association said, hey, thanks, but no thanks, when it came to practicing in person, at least. So no 11-on-11s, no 7-on-7s, at least not in a competitive nature. And they're going to be doing most of this stuff in the film room. They're going to be doing most of this stuff virtually in the film room. But that the moment that we were going to be waiting for with that mandatory camp where maybe Zach Ertz would show up, maybe he wouldn't, not expected to. But it looks like all that is null and void right now because it ain't happening. As COVID continues to affect the NFL. We'll talk more about that in just a second, but let's talk about those Philadelphia Phillies and start off with them. The 8-3 victory yesterday, and it wasn't always looking good. After Zach Wheeler goes out there and just really dominated for 7 innings, allowing 1 run, striking out 10, and had the Marlins off balance throughout his start, you didn't get him any run support. You're losing. You know bats. Silence. Shh. Don't wake up the offense. The offense is still sleeping. And then what happens? Phillies are able to get a run for themselves. Phillies are able to get Andrew McCutchen up there. He hits a sacrifice fly in the 7th inning. He ties up the score at 1 run apiece. And then, Jose Alvarado hasn't really been giving up the long ball this year, but man, he gave up a bomb yesterday. And that puts you down 3-1. And you're not exactly feeling good because the Phillies offense has been silent. They've been asleep for most of the 7+ innings. And then, all of a sudden, something that is a foreign concept to all of us, something that just seems so unheard of. Not only are fans allowed back in the stadium, but fans are on the field. Fans are on the field in South Philadelphia. And they actually, the first fan, they didn't show. There's 2 fans. The first fan they didn't show on TV. You just had, whenever you see a batter just all of a sudden step out of the batter's box and look down the field, and everyone's looking down the field, and maybe you'll catch an eye roll of a player, and then you'll hear the fans react to something that they should have. What are they reacting to? There's a fan on the field. And the first time they didn't show the fan. The second time, NBC Sports Philly did the kind of bird's eye view, and you could see a fan, like, I'll say this, their form was bad. I'm not a track expert, but their form was bad. But anyway, the fan ends up going down like a sack of potatoes down the first base line. They take him off the field. And then after that moment, the bats came alive. And that's when you started to see this Phillies team rake a little bit. Alec Boehm came up with a solid double off the wall that really, I thought, made up for trying to stretch a single into a double earlier in the game where he was thrown out almost in the same spot in right field. And this time around, he was able to get the RBI. Next thing you know, you're down a run. Then next thing you know, Nick Maton steps up to the plate, who has just been a blessing for this Phillies club. Like, if I would have asked you, hey, who's the hotshot prospect you want the Phillies to come up? Nobody heard of Nick Maton. Like, that's how it feels. I mean, other than seeing him in spring training, you didn't expect a lot from him during the regular season. Sure enough, he has been an all-star for this team so far in his time being called up, and hopefully he keeps that going, obviously. But Maton comes up, strokes a big 2-run single to right field. They end up tying the ball game. And here's another thing. Let me go back for a second. A lot of this started with Brad Miller breaking one of the rules in baseball that every single Little League coach tells their first-year ever players. Like in T-ball probably doesn't happen, but at least maybe coaches pitch, it happens. Never slide into first base. And Brad Miller not only just slides into first base, slides head first into first base. And maybe this is the one time it might have helped. I still doubt it. I don't think it would have needed the review. But he's called out. They review it. And what ends up happening? Safe! Brad Miller ends up being safe on the play. And he ends up coming around to score later in that inning. Now, here's the big hit. The big hit with the score tied at 3 in the 8th inning. Ronnie Torreyes steps up. And this guy has been through the ringer, dealing with injuries. Joe Girardi talked postgame. We'll hear from him in a second about how he was dealing with COVID protocol. And he comes up with a big base knock for the Phillies, doubles to left field. Herrera ends up scoring on the play. Andrew Knapp ends up scoring on the play. Nick Maton ends up taking third on the play, and the Phillies all of a sudden are up 6-3 out of nowhere. They end up winning the game 8-3 thanks to a Bryce Harper single that played it a couple more. It was a wild game for the Phillies last night, and in that inning, I believe it was 7 hits and 7 runs for the Phillies in the 8th inning. And after the game, Joe Girardi spoke about Ronnie Torreyes being able to come up with that big hit for the Phillies, his first real big contribution as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies.
He worked really hard in his rehab, and obviously, he was out because of COVID protocols and, kind of wiped him out a little bit. And he got a bunch of at-bats in AAA and played different positions. But, that's a huge hit. There are a ton of huge at-bats in that inning, but that's a really big hit.
Another big at-bat in that inning was Andrew Knapp, who has just been great for the Phillies this year. All you could ask for a backup catcher. And with JT Realmuto having his issues recently, you need all the help you can get at the catcher position. So watching those guys play the way they played and watching those at-bats in the 8th inning, it was just great. And it's so comforting to see, even though they lost to the Blue Jays in the series finale up there, they still put up 8 runs late in that ball game. If this offense can start capturing that we're never out of it mentality, if they can start looking at it like a guy like Alec Boehm can contribute again, similar to the way he did last year, the way he certainly did yesterday, if they can start getting big hits from Bryce Harper, who I wasn't expecting anything from after watching him go through what he went through in Game 3 of that series in Toronto, from being thrown in the right field at the last minute to laying down a bunch of bunt attempts against the Blue Jays as well. Watching him play yesterday, I wasn't expecting a lot, and he comes up with a big base knock late in the game. So I wasn't expecting anything. And to be able to get at least a couple of RBIs out of Bryce Harper is great. But if the Phils can go back to that type of mentality where you always feel like they're in it, this lineup's going to put up runs and all that, if they could go back to at least putting that thought in your mind, man, they're going to be such a exciting team to watch when you go through those dog days of summer. If they can get back to that. And yesterday was, I heard, I think it was Ricky Bowe talking about this in the pregame show. You hear him talk about how it's that hitting season again. It's that hitting weather again. Whatever it might be. Let's just hope that the Phillies are able to keep this going as they go up against the Marlins for 2 more games in this series. Because the Marlins, for the last 2 years, as I mentioned earlier, just have been a team to play almost spoiler. Like, you feel like you go through a good series against the Braves and you win 2 or 3, and then they would go face the Marlins over the last couple of years, or they would win 2 or 3 against the Mets, and you'd be feeling good about yourself. And then you go to Miami, you get swept by the Marlins. Like, wow, what sense does that make? And I remember talking to Jason Stark over the last couple of years, and Jason Stark always said the NL East was going to come down to who beats the Marlins the most And the Phillies were one of the worst teams in the division at playing the Miami Marlins. And if they look, it's a good start in your first game against them this season. Let's keep pouring that on. Let's hope that just keeps on coming for the Phillies yesterday. And also, last thing I want to mention about this game, Zach Wheeler just missed a home run. Zach Wheeler can rake for this team, flat out rake for this team. So again, let's hope that this Phillies team keeps it coming throughout the season. Let's talk a little NBA playoffs. We're going to get into this a little bit. Charles Barkley had a hilarious statement made on the pregame show where he predicted the Hornets to win. And not only did he predict the Hornets to win, he did it emphatically with sound effects. We'll get to that later. But Hornets get blown out of the water, bottom line, by the Pacers. So the Pacers end up surviving and advancing to face the losers of the Wizards-Celtics game. I was hoping the Celtics were going to lose to the Wizards because I always like when the Celtics lose. But then I was hoping they'd advance and then play the Sixers in the first round just so the Sixers could return the favor and sweep their asses out of the playoffs like what happened last year in the bubble. Didn't happen that way exactly. Now, I thought the Pacers would win. They did. So now they live to fight another day and for their case, hope to at least go on to face the Sixers, which they most likely will. So we'll see how that plays out. But the Celtics last night and Jason Tatum dropping 50 last night on the Wizards. And if you watch that game, the Wizards fell apart. They go into halftime leading by 2. And that was after, I believe, a 27-7 run going into halftime. They're trailing by 2. They battle back into the game, but get a big run, obviously, like I just said. Then they come out of halftime, and they were cooked. Bradley Beal's hamstring did not look right. It seemed like every time he went up strong to the rim, he was grabbing his calf, or his hamstring, excuse me. Russell Westbrook looked like he was all out of sorts throughout that game, missing layups left and right. You saw him walking off the court after the game, hanging his head like he was all pissed off. They have an opportunity still, like I said, to play the Pacers, and we'll see who wins that game to go up to face the Sixers. But, man, if that's the Wizards team that could be playing the Sixers in the first round, oh, please, bring them on. They looked awful in that game. Bertans didn't look necessarily sharp either. They looked like a team that was supposed to be blown out. And on the other side of things, wow, the Celtics just looked like, I mean, Jason Tatum, most notably, just looked like a guy who anything he threw up, he was going to knock down. And you saw him get upset at the refs a couple of different times because he thought he got the end one, but he didn't. But really, just a dominant performance from Jason Tatum. And every time I watch Jason Tatum dominate, I do think about Markel Fultz. It pops into my mind every single time. And I know that the easy counter argument was that he was never available for the Sixers, or the Sixers were never going to take him, whatever. Yeah, I don't subscribe to that. Sixers picked here. Boston picked here. If you're up here, you take whoever the hell you want. And they took Markel Fultz. And I was at the draft party that was at the Piazza all those years ago. And the place went bonkers. It was packed. And the place went nuts for Markel Fultz. So if you ask anybody on that day about the revisionist history, I would sure that their hindsight is very much 2020. However, every time I watch Jason Tatum, I'm going to be thinking about that exact moment. But then again, it's more up to Brian Colangelo to know these guys more than we. Huh? Right? Huh? And he didn't, unfortunately. But it was so we'll see who the Sixers face. Next game is going to be Thursday. So that's tomorrow. Sixers again will face the Wizards, or they will face the Indiana Pacers. And we'll see how all that plays out. And when do they get to this? There's always some drama when it comes to mandatory camp. When somebody is having issues with their contract, like Zach Ertz is right now, whether or not he's going to show up. And it's one of those things that, like, people will just come up to you and ask. Like, my neighbor came up to me the other day and was like, hey, what's going on with Zach Ertz? Why isn't he showing up? If somebody paid me $8 million, I'd show up. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. There's other tight ends around the league that are getting significantly more. If you were in that market and somebody else was getting like double what you're getting, whatever, you would want to renegotiate your deal. You would want another opportunity, to make a little bit more money. And that's just human nature. That's how, let's say 99.9% of us are. We want to be paid our market value. Now, what's happening right now with the Eagles is the next 2 weeks, and I want to make sure I get this right for you, so I'm going to read this off my notes. All right, and this is from NBC Sports Philly. The next 2 weeks will fall under Phase 3 rules. This is in conjunction with, that's the way to say that, in conjunction with the NFL Players Association, the Philadelphia Eagles players, obviously, and the Eagles. The next 2 weeks will fall under Phase 3 rules, which are normally OTAs. The big difference this year is there will be no 11-on-11s or 7-on-7 work. According to the team, on-field drills will mirror that of Phase 2. So all you're really going to be getting is guys running routes, guys hitting a sled, guys in the film room, some in person, some virtually. That's all you're going to be getting for Phase 3. The other part of it is that mandatory minicamp, originally scheduled for June 8th to the 10th, has been eliminated. After the next 2 weeks, the Eagles will break until the start of training camp. See you in July, boys. Nick Sirianni has never been a head coach before in the NFL. Nick Sirianni has obviously been a coordinator. He's worked under Frank Reich and all that, but he's never been a head coach before. This does bother me. And it's weird because we're coming off a season where the Eagles were supposed to have the biggest advantage because they had Doug Peterson. And man, that didn't work out. But now you have a first-year head coach who's taken over the responsibilities here in Philadelphia, and he's not going to have as much time with his players in the capacity that you would want him to. And I know some of this was to be expected. This is a conversation that has been had more than a couple of times already. But this does not make me feel good because it's not just a rookie head coach. It's, right now at least, Jalen Hurts, really regardless of what this is, it's Jalen Hurts, it's Deshaun Watson, it's whoever quarterback could be coming in here to Philadelphia, not having experience with an inexperienced head coach. And not having experience with that inexperienced head coach's game plan, scheme, play calling, all that. It feels like we're going to have to grade this team on a curve if they don't have that experience with one another, and that really starts to show throughout training camp. And when we were talking with Hugh Douglas about this yesterday, Hugh brought up a really interesting point. When I asked him about Nick Sirianni being a pit bull, to use Nick Sirianni's words, not mine, to be a pit bull for fundamentals, Hugh jumped immediately to padded practices and how back in the day when he was playing, it was all padded practices. And even if they just had shorts and shells on, it was a situation where they were still running at a high speed. So you're trying to digest all that stuff faster like you would during a game. Seems like a good idea. Well, now it's like, how can you be a stickler for fundamentals when you're not even going to have these guys in padded practices, running 11-on-11, even in practices where you're just shorts and shells? How are you going to be a stickler for fundamentals when there's no 11-on-11, there's no 7-on-7, and most of the stuff you're doing is like in the classroom? That does not make me feel good at all. I don't like this a little bit. And look, I'm not saying, hey, how dare you, NFL players, for being, trying to be cautious about COVID and all that. I'm not going to shame anybody when it comes to that. I'm strictly saying this as a matter of fact when it comes to simply how sharp you will be as a football team, how sharp this offense will be trying to digest a new offense, and how sharp this team will be trying to just learn their new head coach and his scheme and what he wants to run. It almost seems obvious to me that the less time you're together, the least amount of sharpness you'll have as a football team. As it just seems really odd to me that you're going to have, or not odd, it takes away a lot of my confidence in this team, hopefully being as crisp as I would want them to be by the season start. So that is my concern. And again, you go back to Doug Peterson, and he had been here, and we were supposed to have the edge in Philadelphia. The Eagles were supposed to have the edge because Doug Peterson was the only head coach that had coached the team before. And you looked at a team like the Giants, they seemed like they got sharper as the year went on, and they looked like they were responding to their first-year head coach in Joe Judge. So who really knows how it works out? But, I mean, I think if you asked anybody, would you want more time with your new head coach or less time with your new head coach? I think the vast majority of people would go for, I would like more time with my new head coach so I can get to know him and I can understand his schemes and I can feel out how he is going to be as a head coach and how he's going to be in those crucial game day scenarios. But that's not going to be the right that the Eagles are afforded in the early goings of all of this. So that's it's unfortunate, but that's what's going to happen in the NFL. And then the drama that might relieve us from is that we're not really going to be following Zach Ertz in any type of holdout because nothing's going to be mandatory anyway. So we won't see these guys until training camp, and I would doubt Zach Ertz is going to skip out on training camp. And who knows? Maybe Zach Ertz isn't even here by training camp. Maybe he's actually traded by that time. So we will continue to follow the Eagles and what they do throughout the offseason. So we'll do that. Now, another note on the Eagles. Eagles go out there yesterday, and they do make an acquisition. Now, how about this? The Eagles and Howie Roseman, and I said this last year, and I'm going to remind, or a couple of weeks ago, and I'll remind people that I said this throughout because he seems to be making good on this. I said that Howie Roseman was going to make a lot of people feel a lot better about himself throughout the offseason. And I hated the idea of trading back. It ended up working out again. Credit to Howie for knowing the market and all that. But Howie just traded yesterday. The Eagles need a corner. And I'm not saying that Josiah Scott, lifelong Eagles fan, by the way, I'm not going to say that Josiah Scott is going to come out here and be Darius Slay 2.0 or anything like that. But let's think about this, right? Howie Roseman just traded an undrafted cornerback from 2020, a guy that is now on his fourth team in his 1 year of being a professional, along with a 6th-round pick in 2023 for a 4th-round pick with a little bit of NFL experience, at least, playing for Jacksonville. He just traded an undrafted guy, a 6th-round pick 2 years down the line for a 4th-round pick. That's a Howie move right there. That's a fleece, if you will, and hopefully Josiah Scott ends up proving that here in Philadelphia. But that's a great deal. If you just look at it on paper, that's a great deal. The problem is you've gotten depth more so than you've gotten a guy that could come and be a starter. Zach McPherson, their 4th-round pick from this year. I'm blank. Avonte Maddox and Josiah Scott seem to be a very similar type of player. They're both 5'9", 5'10". They both got great speed, but they got more experience on the inside than they do the outside. So the question still remains, who's the Craig James? Who's the guy that's still going to play opposite Darius Slay? Hey, look, they got depth. I'm not upset that they got depth. Maybe Zach McPherson can be a guy to step up and just blow us away, right? But really, all this move seems to be is more depth. They don't really seem to have an answer, at least not yet, for who's going to be the outside corner opposite Darius Slay when the season begins, or when they finally report to training camp. What's that first depth chart going to look like? I would assume right now your starting outside corner opposite Darius Slay is still going to be Avonte Maddox, which, I love Avonte Maddox, but a lot of people were talking about going into the offseason, myself included, they needed to make an upgrade at that position. As well as Avonte Maddox has played on the inside. He has had his struggles on the outside. So the Eagles are still looking at themselves in the mirror going, I don't know what we're doing yet. It seems like right now they're going to go into the season with what they left last season with, which is Darius Slay on one side, and then CB2 is going to be Avonte Maddox on the outside. We'll continue to follow that one throughout the offseason. Again, it would be nice to have maybe mandatory OTAs where they can figure this out just a little bit. And here's the other thing. As much as we could talk about Nick Sirianni and his offense and what they're going to learn over the next couple of weeks, at least what they would learn over the next couple of weeks here, that's now not happening because now there is no mandatory camp. What about Jonathan Gannon and his scheme? Because as much as, and we touched on this briefly yesterday, as much as we want to look at Ryan Kerrigan as Chris Long, and hopefully that's what happens. Chris Long at least had a defensive coordinator here in Philadelphia and Jim Schwartz that he got time with and can learn exactly what his role was going to be in the defense. Jonathan Gannon now is also not going to have that same time, as Nick Sirianni's not having that time. Nick Sirianni is not having that time with his quarterback or any of his offensive players, and Devontae Smith, for instance. Jonathan Gannon's not getting that time with any newcomers to this defense, and he's not getting that really. I mean, everybody's a newcomer because he got a new defensive coordinator. So it's, again, just a lack of communication. a lack of time that you're going to have spent with these players. We are trying to preach what your new scheme is going to be, and they're going to be cut short of that, unfortunately. Again, we'll hope for the best when it comes to this Eagles team and the cut of time that is going to be missing here, unfortunately. Before we get to Darryl Reynolds, we'll talk all things Sixers and Villanova and Kobe Bryant and all that. I do want to tell you about my good friend at Steven Singer Jewelers. A lot of people, a lot of the other businesses, a lot of the other jewelers must really hate this guy because he makes the experience of buying a diamond so much fun each and every time. Have you ever wondered if the guy next to you, if the person next to you is paying more for the diamond, if their negotiating skills are better than yours, if you're missing out on some great deal because you can't negotiate or you don't have the right promo code, right? Well, throw all that out the window when it comes to Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, because every single day you get the perfect price. No promos, no sales, no wacky anything like that. It's just about the perfect price every single time. So when you walk in, you don't got to worry about negotiating. All you got to worry about is what diamond you want to buy, is what piece of jewelry you want to buy for that special someone in your life. Head to Steven Singer Jewelers right now, where you're guaranteed the perfect price. Here's a little insider tip. Most jewelers will mark up their merchandise just to make you feel like you're getting a deal. Guess what? That's not happening at all. There's no deal. They just want to make you feel special. Steven, when you walk in, already set at the perfect price every single time. Real jewelry experts set that price for you. When you walk in, they'll walk you through everything when it comes to all the beautiful inventory they have at Steven Singer Jewelers. Because Steven Singer, you're guaranteed to get the perfect price all day, every day, 365 days a year. That's why I trust Steven Singer Jewelers. That's why I send my family and friends and you to Steven Singer Jewelers. Check out Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia, online at IHateStevenSinger.com. Steven Singer Jewelers, one place, one price. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. After Darryl Reynolds, we'll, of course, have our Morning Rush segment, as we always do. You're not going to want to miss Charles Barkley if you haven't seen it yet. His guarantee fell flat. We'll just say that. Now, without further ado, joining us on the Zatos Investments guest line, let's talk to our friend of Villanova fame, Mr. Darryl Reynolds. In three. No worries. In three. Zatos Investments guest line all the way from the other side of the country. If you're looking at the map, it's the left coast. Directionally, it's the West Coast, from Villanova, pride of Villanova University, national champion. He played for Jay Wright. He coaches at Lower Merion. Welcome to the show, Darryl Reynolds. What's up, D-Ray?
My man's going on, Farzy.
I don't know what would possess you while you're in the fun city that Los Angeles is to be like, oh, yeah, sure, Marc, I'll come on with you. That sounds like a good time.
You're my guy. Whatever it takes, man.
I appreciate you. I know it's dark out there right now, so I appreciate you ignoring the palm trees to talk to this guy for just a second. Here, let's jump right into it because I don't want to take up too much of your time here. Your man, Jay Wright, gets inducted. Like, listen to this sentence. Jay Wright, Basketball Hall of Famer. When we talked about it a few months ago, it was kind of like it was still sinking in, and now it's definitely sunk in, I'm sure. What's it like for you to see your coach go into the Basketball Hall of Fame?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I'm pretty sure you heard the whole "we can't happen to a better guy" spiel and all that. You know what I mean? But it really is the truth. As hard as he works, as much time as he puts in with his players, even after we're out of the program, you know what I mean? And what he's built that program back up to be, the level he's taken it to, it makes perfect sense. Man. I'm happy that he's around to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think all great coaches have to be great communicators. Is there something that you picked up from him as you know, you have coached high school kids and all that, and you've helped out at Villanova, obviously. Is there something that you have picked up from him, like something that he just does so well that helps his communication?
Yeah, he doesn't curse when the camera's on him. I'm just kidding. But no. He, all jokes aside, he is a great listener. The older I get, the more I realize it's not so much about what you say. You know what I mean? It's about what you hear. And he is a very good reciprocator of art. What is this kid trying to say? What is this kid trying to communicate? And then the way he talks back to you is like, okay, he really understands where I'm coming from. And not saying that, you know, that has made my experience or anybody else's experience like at the program, you know, just flowers and rainbows and just the easiest thing. But as far as the communication goes, there's never really much confusion because he listens so well.
Was there a moment while you were playing for him that you kind of knew that this guy was a next level type of guy? Like the type of guy that would be a Hall of Famer by the time he was 59 years old. I mean, that's incredible. Was there a moment that really sticks out to you when you were playing for him?
Nah, it was seeing his wherewithal throughout games. I think it wasn't really any one moment. I would see these moments that, for example, the moment that everybody, remembers from the national championship game is when it's going in and he says bang, and like he kind of like timed it up. But it's more so his ability to stay calm in certain situations. I was like, that's probably his best asset as a leader. And not saying that correlates anyway into Hall of Fame, but as far as his ability to do that time and time again, it doesn't surprise me why he's so good at coaching people through situations now. It's like his ability to stay even kill is just it's unmatched.
The last thing I want to ask you about Jay Wright and Hall of Fame weekend and all that stuff, because I also want to talk about Kobe Bryant, and you're certainly very well versed in everything Kobe Bryant, being with your experience at Lower Merion yourself. But last thing on Jay Wright, you actually praised me for the last time we talked. I didn't ask you about the suits. But how hurt do you think Jay Wright would be if coaches didn't return to suits and they just wore like the jumpsuits, the jogging suits? They look like a bunch of like 80s rappers, on the sidelines instead. What if they never went back to the nice suits? Well, how would Jay Wright feel about that?
I think he'd be happy he hasn't doing the questions anymore. But I haven't heard any of them complain. They're probably so comfortable. Like the suits look the way they look, but it's like, you get in there afterwards, they take off that jacket, you see that puddle up under their armpits, and you know what I mean? Like I can imagine every coach is like, hold on, what? I can move comfortably now? Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, you can still get them dry cleaned. I know I have plenty of people. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
On a more poignant note, one of the greatest basketball players I've ever seen, and certainly I'm sure you've ever seen, Kobe Bryant, goes into the Hall of Fame. A beautiful speech, both by Michael Jordan, by also his widow, Vanessa. Just an incredible, incredible weekend for the Bryant family and everyone that knew Kobe from his time here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, man, it was amazing. Obviously, you wish he could have been around to see it. Going in there with Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett, just the way you couldn't. Obviously, you could write a slightly better story, but as far as just like those guys going in together, Michael Jordan being the one that did it, it was amazing. His daughter getting the jacket. I'm so happy they did that justice from every little detail. You know what I mean? I'm so happy they did that justice. And I hope just whatever comes next in coverage of him and whatever comes next as far as like covering his life, something like that, is just done tastefully. Dude, I think it will be. I think his legacy is in great hands because so many people just think the world of him.
I'm sure. And the Lower Merion community especially. And I talked about this story. And D, I got to tell you, I don't know if I've ever felt dumber even though I was a kid when I was watching Kobe Bryant play against the Sixers. I mean, like Kobe being, spending as much time in Italy as he did, spending as much time in Europe as he did, wanting to go to the Lakers from Jump Street and all that stuff. Like, I never felt dumber for a take I had as a kid, like a 16, 17-year-old kid, like, oh, man, Kobe ain't Philly. Kobe ain't Philly. He's Lower Merion. And this is a kid from Doylestown, Ambler, talking about this. And I'm watching Kobe, and he goes through the finals, and he says the thing about cutting the heart out and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then everything happens the way it happened towards the end for Kobe. And I'm doing interviews with people like you, Marc Jackson, Aaron McKee, Joey Crawford, and I am hearing Jim Lynam. I'm hearing story after story about Kobe wasn't just Philly. Kobe was like the perfect example of a Philly attitude.
Yes. Yeah. And that was what I didn't understand. I mean, I get it. First of all, I'm sorry. I don't understand this. I don't understand. If you talk to a New Yorker about Long Island, they will claim somebody from Long Island. If somebody from Long Island is on top of their game, on their P's and Q's. If you talk to somebody from Boston and they mention somebody from,
Chichester or something?
Yeah, but somebody of one of those, Dorchester, one of those neighboring places that quite frankly isn't Boston on paper, but it's still Boston. They claim it. We're the only one, even the DMV, whatever the hell that union is they got down there, and whatever unwritten agreement they understand. All right, it's us, it's Maryland, D.C., and 2 minutes into Virginia. We're the only place that refuses people from the suburbs because they're from the suburbs. I never understood that. But him being from Southwest, I think he definitely did have a chip on his shoulder. And it's like you said, like his attitude. I think the only athlete in that era whose attitude was more Philly than Kobe was AI. You know what I mean? And obviously he's not anywhere from here. But as far as somebody who got dropped here and everybody was like, this is our guy, I think that's what kind of caused the rift. But nah, man, Kobe was Philly through and through. And you know,
yeah, 100%. And like I said, probably the dumbest. If I could change one take I had as a kid that I carried into adulthood, it would be that one. Let's talk about the modern day. Let's talk about the 76ers right now. Number one seed, D-Ray. How you like the Sixers going into the playoffs? Looks like they're going to face the winner of the Wizards-Pacers game to win the 8th seed to take on the number one seeded Sixers. So how you liking the Sixers in this NBA playoffs?
I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it. They need to – this can't not end with an Eastern Conference Finals berth. You know what I mean? I can't speak for the outcome after that because obviously they're going to come up against a very experienced team at that point, but it's just this. They have to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They have to capitalize. I'm done with talking about the results of this team. I'm sorry. As far as, oh my God, they're going to do X, Y, and Z. It's like just get past this first series first and worry about it step by step. But seeing that was crazy, man. You think about where we were as a city 7 years ago. You know what I mean? And it was exactly the dog days. You see how fast this thing has turned around. And you let a Philly fan tell it, it's been an eternity. But 7 years to end up from, you know, what was it, 10 wins or whatever it was back then to being the number one team in the East is just incredible. But I'm hoping it ends with an Eastern Conference championship. Obviously, the finals would be incredible. I don't want to get too caught up on that, but I know they're going to keep doing their thing. And the wild part is, like, people forget these guys are young. You know what I mean? So they're only scratching the surface on their abilities.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, for me personally, and I don't got to play in these games. You don't got to play in these games. So, you know, what does it mean when we say X, Y, or Z or bust? I think for me personally, you go before the process, and you're talking about a Sixers team that lost to the Celtics with Paul Pierce and them guys. They lost to the Celtics in the second round in a Game 7. Then they had an awful year. Doug Collins gets fired, more or less. And then Sam Hinkie comes in, and the process begins. Drew Holiday gets traded on draft day. Nerlens Noel comes in. Michael Carter-Williams, that whole thing. So since that moment, exactly. But since then, the Sixers still have not been past the second round of the playoffs since that AI team that lost to Kobe Bryant in the finals. So how much do you think this team, what do they have to do to not look past the first and second round? Because they should be at least a conference finals team. Whether or not they win there or not, it remains to be seen. But how do you, as a player, not look past games or series that you should win?
You deal with it in one step at a time. You know what I mean? I don't think there's a single team out there that really executes on the whole, we're going to win a championship thing. Obviously, yes, everybody sets out with that goal, but I think it's like anything else. Like you deal with it one step at a time. If one of these guys in practice, they say, I got to shoot 10 in a row, I got to make 10 in a row to leave here. You don't keep saying, I got to make 10 in a row. You say, I got to make this one. I got to make this one. And then after saying that 8 more times and making those 2, you've made 10. You know what I mean? So I think the mentality, that's why I say I don't want to get too attached to the result right now. I think the mentality is whoever makes it out of this playoff game, this play-in game or whatever team makes it out of there, they have to be scratched. It has to be not even a competition. You know what I mean? I think their mindset going into this first series need to be, we need to get in and get out so we can rest for whoever's second and then deal with the second one and then deal with the conference finals. But I think if they get too ahead of themselves, they'll trip up before they even get to the finish line.
Lastly, I have for you on the Sixers, and I want to take away the obvious because I think it's obvious that the most impressive thing for the Sixers this year has been the play of Joel Embiid. So after that, what has impressed you the most about the 2020-21 76ers?
Their bench depth. You know what I mean? Mainly Matisse. You know what I mean? And the development that he's taken and the leap that he's taken, and quite frankly, being probably one of the best defenders in the league. You know what I mean? Coming off the bench as a 6th or 7th man or whatever it is. Max, he surprised me. I did not think that he would adjust as quickly as he did. Not saying he's out there, you know what I mean, dropping 50 balls or anything, but just how quickly he's picking things up That says a lot about the culture. And just how evenly it's spread. You know what I mean? Like, you knew this team was a team that was going to lead by committee. Obviously, Joel Embiid at the helm, but just his personality, and it's like, all right, it's going to be different guys on different nights, but this just looks so balanced. This looks so balanced. I love Brett Brown, but whatever Doc Rivers has pulled into that Michael Secret stuff bottle and shook up and gave them is working, tremendously, tremendously.
Awesome. D-Ray, I can't thank you enough. Look, you're out in Los Angeles. Go live it up. Go enjoy yourself, all right? Seriously, I can't I can't thank you enough for coming on. Get back to the fun. I know I'll talk to you again soon. Hopefully, throughout the playoffs, we'll check in with you, get your take on how the Sixers are holding up throughout the NBA playoffs. Darryl Reynolds, ladies and gentlemen, he's a national champion. You know him, you love him. Thanks so much for coming on, D-Ray.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Get back to the fun. Darryl Reynolds joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line. Always good catching up with D-Ray. Always love his insights and basketball, and obviously, especially Villanova. We always talk about that with players in terms of the moment they knew they were good enough and the moment other players around them knew they were good enough to either be a Pro Bowler or be an All-Star or whatever it might be. But, I never hear about it with a coach. Like, a coach, it almost seems like has to – I don't want to use the word dominate and be over dramatic like that, but like a coach just kind of, has that clarity. Like, they come in and they own the room, that type of thing. I think we don't talk about that enough with coaches, and players have to have a moment. Like for instance, when we talked to Hugh Douglas months ago about this, Nick Sirianni needs to have a quit your bitching moment, like Andy Reid had with Hugh Douglas, where Hugh was like, man, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And Reid's like, man, quit your bitching. Like that kind of moment of like, hey, no. I'm the sheriff in town. I'm the guy that's running the show from here on out. And Jay Wright apparently just has that in a different way in terms of always being calm. And there's something to be said, because I know a lot of us want to have that type of coach that will be an in-your-face guy. It's like most of us in Philadelphia want to have that type of mentality with a head coach that's like, you drop a pass, you run a lap. You don't listen to me, you don't hustle, you run a lap, whatever it might be. But a lot of times, or if something goes wrong, they lose their minds, and we see how angry. Like I loved personally Larry Bowa's time with the Phillies as the manager of the Phillies, because you always knew Larry Bowa wasn't taking no crap, and I think we really applaud that in Philadelphia. The guys that don't take that guff, right? For me, I really admire the people where they have that poise under fire, where no matter what's going on, instead of screaming and yelling and ranting and raving about it, they're just like, yeah, I got this. And that's what happened. That thing we didn't expect to happen. Well, good for us that we're good enough to be able to adjust, and we'll be fine. Like that kind of, like that's almost what you really want in a leader. Sure, it might not be as entertaining. It might not be as emotional, but that person always has it figured out. They always have it figured out. And that's the kind of guy that Jay Wright is, and that's what he kind of inspires in his players. And certainly that's what he makes you think when you're watching him coach, that he always seems to be with it. So anyway, congratulations to the Villanova community and Jay Wright. Not only getting into the Hall of Fame, but I just saw Coach of the Year in the Big Five. Like, it's almost like, all right, I think we've praised Jay Wright enough. All right. But no, in all seriousness, he deserves every ounce of accolades that he gets. And one more thing on D-Ray. Why do we do that with the Philly suburbs thing? Is it because we're that specific? I don't think so. Like, I will tell you this. This is going to be the most random thing in the world, but I grew up in Doylestown. I'm originally from Ambler, but I grew up in Doylestown. But listen to even what I just said there. I told you where I was born and where I spent the first 4 or 5 years of my life, in Ambler, Pennsylvania. But I don't want to say I grew up in Ambler. I don't even yes, I'm originally from Ambler. But if I say I'm originally from Ambler, people from Ambler will be like, oh, yeah? Well, where'd you go to grade school? Would you go to St. Anthony's? Something like that. And I'll be like, no, I went to Mount Carmel because I grew up in Doylestown. Like, how specific I want to be, because I know how parochial we are with our towns and our neighborhoods and all that. I don't want to come off as a fraud. I want to be like, hey, full disclosure. And even though I've lived the vast majority of my adult life in Philadelphia, like really ever since college, when I would travel every weekend, when I was working on Sunday Night Football, and I would be in like Green Bay, Wisconsin, or like San Diego, California, and people are like, hey, where you from, man? I'd be like, Philly area. I would always say Philly area. I would never say I'm from Philadelphia, just because I was worried that some guy from like 9th and Shunk with their head would pop up out of a plant behind me and be like, you ain't from Philly. And I'd be like, sorry. That whole thing. But we are so unbelievably parochial. We are so territorial when it comes to our neighborhoods that I don't ever say I'm from Philadelphia. I will always say I'm from around here. I'm from this area, people in this area. But I never, because, oh man, I know you ain't from Philly. Even though right now my driver's license is definitely Philadelphia. But yeah, it is. We're so territorial with it. Why are we like that? Are we a stickler for detail? I don't think so. Anyway, so that's my little rant on that. But D-Ray brings up a great point. It makes you think of Kobe Bryant a little bit. Coming up, we got our Morning Rush segment. We got our social media check-in. We'll get to that in just a second. But right now, I want to tell you about our friends at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite Philadelphia teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsStation.com, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. And how about our friends over at Hers? Let me tell you about my mom for a second here, right? My mom came down yesterday to help out with Lil Toots, help out with Emmanuel, my daughter, who's going to be 2 in August now already. And my wife and I both were busy yesterday, so my mom came up to help out. And I said, my mom likes spice, right? So I said, Mom, you got to try this. Hers popcorn, the brand new fiery hot fire roasted sweet corn from Hers. It is amazing. Sure enough, Eleanor, Mom takes a handful of that popcorn. Loved it. Mom loved it. My dad and I and my mom, really, we all like in my family, we all like a little spice. This is the perfect combination of spice and savory, buttery popcorn deliciousness. It's like when you have that delicious street corn that you can have at a barbecue or whatever. People put the sweet corn, it's a big deal now. Grill the sweet corn. This is the perfect bite in every bite. Every handful, every kernel, every popped kernel, every popcorn, it has that perfect bite of that street corn and spice and savory, buttery deliciousness with the all-new fiery hot, fire-roasted sweet corn from Hers Snacks. It is delicious. The perfect bite in every bite. Hers fiery hot, fire-roasted sweet corn is a must-have at the beach this summer. Barbecues you go to, bring a couple of bags of this, and we get ready to be the most popular kid in town. It is delicious. It is one of my favorite snacks already. It's brand new. It's based off of, you've had the sweet corn before. You've had the fire-roasted sweet corn already. That is delicious. Now it's the fiery hot fire-roasted sweet corn. It is nothing short of spectacular. So next time you're in the snack aisle, make sure you pick up a bag of this. Try it for yourself. It is delicious. Fiery hot, fire-roasted sweet corn from Hers. Treat yourself, ladies and gentlemen. It is fantastic. How about our friends over at, Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Right in the heart of Northeast Maryland. I can't wait. I'm going to see my man Tony Gavada coming up on Monday. They got an event going on in South Philadelphia, so he'll be in Philly. I'll see him over there, and I'm sure he'll bring me up to speed on everything going on at Steak and Maine. Fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you like to dine in a more upscale steakhouse, casual bar, and patio, you will enjoy the highest quality prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that and an extensive wine list. Here's one thing I've become a big fan of as an adult, quote unquote. The wine pairing, that just hits different, as the kids say. I love it. And there you get a nice bottle of wine at Steak and Maine with a great steak. Oh, it is nothing better in the world. Open every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself at steakandmaine.com. Nothing, really, just everything they have is just fantastic. The favorite thing you could have there for me is that tomahawk. The tomahawk that they have is just, I know I say this a lot because I crave a lot of food. Mouth-watering. How about also our friends at Zatos Investments, an up-and-coming real estate, luxury real estate and development company in the heart of Philadelphia. They design and develop top-of-the-line custom homes all around the city, ranging from small single-family rehabs to ground-up new construction townhomes and condo buildings. Zatos also works closely with their private investor base to provide them with substantial returns on their investment, ranging from 20 to 40%. These guys crushing it right now in the Philadelphia real estate game. To see some of their properties and learn how you, too, could invest with Zatos Investments, simply reach out to them at info@zatosinvestments.com or visit zatosinvestments.com. Let's get into our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Maine at steakandmaine.com. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys are just keeping it real in the comments here on our YouTube page, and I appreciate that as always. Benny's checking in saying good morning. Good morning to you as well. He's saying not just to me, but everybody in the chat. What up, fam? Benny, thanks for chiming in there. Chris with a fist bump. Fist bump to you, Chris. Nice to see you. Mac, so how can Zach Ertz be considered not showing? Mac saying, oh, I did go there. Oh, you did go there. Yes, I did. I mean, it was one of the first things I thought of. I'm like, oh, they're not going to have mandatory anything? So where's the drama with the holdout? No drama. Drama-less, if you ask me. Mally's checking in saying, good morning. What's up, Mally? Dan Swartz, morning all. Good win, but sick of the one-inning offense. Like to spread it out more. I don't mind it. I find the one inning the other team can't do anything right type of thing to be awesome. And I feel like it makes the game go faster. And if baseball needs anything, it's to speed it up a bit. They've taken a long game and said, how can we make this longer? And yeah, I love baseball, but man, it's becoming every single night a marathon. Every single night a marathon. And when I was a kid, some of my friends, a lot of my friends, would make fun of me because I loved baseball. And they're like, baseball's boring. And I'm like, I love baseball. Like, it's too slow. And that's when the average time of a game was like 2 hours or 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. And now it's like every single night, 7:05 first pitch, last pitch 10:30. Who has that kind of time? Anyway, Dan, what's up? How you doing? What's up, Farzy? What up, chat? It's T-Bro checking in. What's up, brother? Henry's checking in. We got Jaden. What's going on? Dan, spoiler, Fish were big-time playoff team last year. Yeah, not so much. Double-digit strikeouts every game. Mally's checking in. It certainly feels like that. Benny's checking in. Free Zach Ertz. Guys like Ertz punching the wall out of frustration. What's up, Dan? Mally, big bets. Over-under on Simmons making at least a 1-3 in the whole playoff run. I would say the under. I don't see that happening. We'll get into that, by the way, as the playoffs approach. I don't want to continue to repeat myself about Ben Simmons, but here's an article worth checking out. NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. Dan Roche wrote a great Booney, as you know him, wrote a great article on Ben Simmons and how he has to be aggressive throughout the playoffs, without a question. I recommend checking that out. We'll talk about that more later in the week. Matt's checking in saying, oh, a Mrs. Farzetta story coming. Yeah, on my mom. It's my mom. That's my mom you're talking about, bro. Anyway, April's checking in. Mouth watering. Yeah, mouth watering. It's delicious. So you got to check it out. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. Fiery hot fire roasted sweet corn. When you move out of the... Oh, okay, here you go. So April's checking it also. It's funny because it's the opposite when you move out of the area. If you try to break it down to the town, people are lost. Philly area works every time. That's what I'm saying. I always say I'm from the Philly area. I never say I'm from Philadelphia because I'm just terrified somebody from, even Northeast is going to be like, you ain't from Philly. I'm like, where'd you come from? You geographical ninja. Anyway, what the hell am I talking about? That was our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Let's move it on into our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars at skymotorcars.com. As promised, the Hornets got blown out of the water last night. And Charles Barkley, I want to lead off with this because I teased it earlier, so I want to make sure I'm paying off on the tease. Charles Barkley was, he issued a guarantee and put some stank on it, ladies and gentlemen. And TNT on their Instagram account did Chuck dirty.
But I really, I'm going out on a limb. Ernie, can I do it? I just found out what it is.
What's that?
Oh, I need one of those. The Charlotte Hornets are going to win.
And then they, of course, posted the score of the Charlotte Hornets not winning. So they got chucked pretty good. Do want to tell you, we got baseball going on tonight. Again, 7:05 start time, South Philadelphia. Trevor, who do they have here? Trevor, I don't have his last name. Zach Eflin will pitch for the Phillies tonight, but they're going up against a left-handed pitcher tonight for the Miami Marlins. So they got that going for themselves in South Philadelphia. So make sure you check that out. Phillies injuries. I touched on JT Realmuto for a second there. JT Realmuto is just day to day. I believe it's a wrist injury with him. Didi Gregorius, 10-day injured list, so we won't see him for a little bit here. Scott Kingery, 7-day concussion after banging his head into the wall in Florida against the Blue Jays. And then reliever Jojo Romero, Tommy John surgery, so won't be seeing him anytime soon. NBA playoffs, Spurs tonight. Spurs at Grizzlies, 7:30 tip-off. And then I mentioned this yesterday, but I just can't. I love this. I love the play-in tournament. I think it's just weird how they have it set up, but whatever. I actually like it. The Golden State Warriors take on Los Angeles Lakers tonight. So LeBron, AD versus Steph Curry, Draymond Green, all those fellas, right? Andrew Wiggins and all that. It's in Los Angeles. I can't wait for this game. I'm telling you right now, I got a jam-packed day. Jam-packed day today. I will be up until 1 a.m. at least watching that game. I love Steph Curry versus LeBron James. I love that Warriors versus Lakers and all that stuff. I'll be rooting hard for the Warriors just because I'm not the biggest LeBron fan. I respect the hell out of him, but I'm a bigger Steph Curry fan than I am anything. Versus LeBron. So I can't wait for that game tonight. I am super pumped to just watch that game. And this is the best case scenario. Think about the NBA and what they must be doing behind closed doors and how they're patting themselves on the back. Hey, I got an idea. Let's cut the season by 10 games because of the short turnaround. But here's it, spoiler, or a twist. We're going to have a play-in tournament at the end of the season just to make up a couple games, and make it more interesting for fans and teams. And then somebody goes, yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. And then not only do they do it, but you get Warriors, Lakers, Steph Curry, LeBron James to start it out. Bask in the goodness that is the NBA play-in tournament. Not against it at all. So you got Spurs, Grizzlies tonight, 7:30. Warriors, Lakers, 10 o'clock tonight. Pacers, Wizards tip-off. I believe it's a 7:30 tip-off tomorrow night to find out who the Sixers are going to play in the first round of the playoffs beginning on Sunday. I always like to have a little outside story here, something outside the world of sports that just made me go, what the hell? Folks, let's talk about pooping. Here you go. In England, I don't have the name of the company. I couldn't find the name of the company. But there's an employee that shows up on time every day. And it's a business. And this person apparently is doing really well at their job. But apparently he goes to his business to do his business. And apparently it's the first half hour of every day. He disappears to go to the men's room. Apparently people have gone in. I mean, if you're at a workplace, if you're going and working in an office, it's not like an individualized bathroom. It's a big bathroom. So people know if somebody's in there. And they know if somebody's doing something in there that they shouldn't be doing. A little of that, smoking. So people go in and this dude's in there every day for at least a half hour. So people have started to complain that while other people are diligently working, this guy's in there having his me time. And it's become an issue with other employees. The bosses are like, this guy's great at his job, but they don't want to set a bad precedent for anybody that, could be following this person into the men's room every single day. What do you do with this scenario? The story asks, and I saw this on Lad Bible. The story asks, how do you handle this situation? If you're a boss and other employees are complaining that this guy basically starts his day every day on break for a half hour at least, how do you handle it as a boss if this guy is productive still at his job? He might, I don't know if he's in sales or what he is, if he's like the top sales guy there and they don't want to say anything, or if he's just one of the top sales guys there and they don't want to say anything. if you're a boss, how do you handle that situation? And I'll also say this. If you're going in there on your company time, that's a bold strategy. You're going and hiding for a minute there to start out the day, but you're showing up on time. It's not like works at 9 and he's getting there at 8:30 to have his me time. No. He's getting there at 9 and then he doesn't really start work till 9:30, 9:45. Every day. This isn't like a couple of days a week. It's every day. How do you handle that situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts as this goes on. Thomas is checking in. He's doing some business right now. Well, I'm glad I could keep you company. I'm just going to sit here and stare at you for a second. Is this weird? It is weird. Okay. That was our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars and SkyMotorCars.com. Thanks for everybody that sent some stories in as well. You can always suggest stories to me on social media. Never afraid to discuss anything, as was just noted. Let's get into our big bet segment brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Here's what you got going on for tonight. Spurs, Memphis, as we mentioned a second ago. Going into tonight, the Spurs are looking to have still fighting for some playoff success in the DeMar DeRozan era. They go into tonight as 4-point underdogs. So I actually like the Grizzlies winning that game tonight, even though you can always break it down to a head coach as having that extra edge. That could certainly happen tonight for the Spurs. But the Grizzlies, I like winning tonight outright, let's put it that way, with the 7:30 tip-off. And then in the later game, the Warriors, last I checked, the Warriors were a 4-point underdog as well going into tonight's game. I just want to make sure that is correct as a tip-off of the Lakers at 10:30. At 10 o'clock tonight. And for whatever reason, my notes are freezing. And it's not coming up, so I'm going to the old internet here. But yeah, 5-point underdogs. The Warriors are 5-point underdogs against the Lakers tonight. Look, I think if it comes down to LeBron and Anthony Davis, if they're anything close to 100%, I think they win that going away. The Lakers, I believe, took 2 of 3 from the Warriors throughout the season. So I think the Lakers win tonight. They're on their home court. 5-point favorites, so I would look at the Lakers to be able to cover that as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. My appreciation to everyone that listened and download the podcast, as well as watched on our different social media platforms. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Hey, I also want to just tease this real quick. Later in the week, we're going to have our first installment of a Farzy feature. Ladies and gentlemen, this one's going to be on LaSalle baseball and saving LaSalle baseball. Caught up with those guys yesterday. James Santore, who is leading the charge to save LaSalle baseball. If you haven't seen this story, LaSalle is canceling their baseball season or baseball team, as well as 9 other sports. They actually saved the swimming and diving team. They were able to bring up enough funds. Baseball, as you would assume, a little bit more expensive. So, and if they did that, they'd also have to save softball. So it's a crazy thing that's going on right now. I'm really rooting for these guys. And the other thing is LaSalle baseball is just crushing it this year as well. So they're having their best season in 36 years. So they announced the cancellation in September. Since then, LaSalle baseball alumni are trying to save the program. And since then, the baseball team themselves have just been raking this year. So we'll talk about that in our first installment of a Farzy feature. It's going to be a little bit more of an in-depth piece. It's going to be more than a Farzy in the field, I'll tell you that. But thanks again to everyone that watched and listened today. Thanks again to Jim Hyden, and this is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day. Take it easy.